Whew. Mhm. All right. All right. All right. Got it. Got it. YouTube is live. LinkedIn is live. Let me send the message on WhatsApp to people later. Okay. (128th, 138th episode. Okay. That's a lot of episodes, man. Done. Great. I am here. Perfect. Everything is sorted. Now I'll be looking forward to you. Come on in. Come on in. And let me know if you can hear me. If you can hear me, we will begin the show that we deserve. The show that we deserve. Yes, we do. It's so good. We cannot take a break and we don't. I see some people joining in. Confirm the audio, folks. Confirm the audio. Is the audio working? I see some people joining in. Good morning, we can hear you, Nishant, says Mr. Rajakumar. Good morning, Mr. Kumar. How are you doing? How's the book? How are you feeling? Is everything okay? And with that, we should begin. Thank you for the nod. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, Nishant, says Mr. Varun Bhardwaj. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! But before we go, gotta follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition. You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and it'll bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail, every day. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug or glass or tank, a chalice or stein, a canteen jug or flask or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like some hot water with black pepper in it. And here we go. Lovely, isn't it? Let's do it again. Beautiful. Sublime. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you are not alone. It says that we are in this together. Just such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, before we begin, I'd like you all to help me out. As we discussed yesterday, we need this thing to grow. So wherever you came from, maybe it was WhatsApp, maybe you directly loaded on YouTube, Please share the link on your WhatsApp status or something. Bring more people in, right? We've been exactly the same number of people as we were on the day one. So no growth, which is not cool. So please share it with people, bring people, and that'll make the show even better, right? So a lot of things are going on in this world. Very, very interesting things. Some trustees now lean towards IPO for Tata Sons. So if you remember, we've been talking about Tata Sons and its IPO trouble. Tata Sons original trustees didn't want to IPO because listing of Tata Sons would lead to a lot of problems. Listing is not an easy affair. Companies, when they list, they trade off a lot of long term prospects for short term pressures, which is exactly why some people and some companies do not like the prospect of IPO. They like to stay private. They like to stay long term. We've discussed the example of Bloomberg. We've discussed the example of Zerodha, of Zoho, and many other companies who prefer to stay private, right? However, Tata, while initially wanting to be private, is now dealing with such pressures that the board is inclined towards the possibility of considering a listing. Why the listing? We've talked about it. Do you remember why? Shapurji Palanji Group is looking at a serious amount of debt, and Shapurji Palanji Group has about 19% of Tata Sons. If the Sons entity gets listed, Shapurji Palanji will have the much needed liquidity to pay the debt. If it does not, it'll be in big trouble. Shapurji Palanji is in such dire straits that it's actually looking at HNIs to invest very small amount of money at astounding interest rates because its debt is so loomed up that it doesn't know where to go, right? And to avoid those troubles, an easy fix would be to have some sort of liquidity as they play, right? So they have their shares pledged already, but they don't have liquidity. And to have that, they need Tata Sons to get listed, right? Now the contention is about somebody's removal from the board. There's somebody called Mr. Vijay Singh, right? And that got the board divided. And now it's come to this where the board is considering to list Tata Sons. So you don't know what happens to Tata Sons. Tata is like a 150-year-old company, right? Approximately. So if it gets listed, it's gonna be a very, very new era for the country. Mr. Abhishek Sharma asks, can they not sell 18% to someone else even without going public? Oh, no, no, no. You cannot sell that stake so easily. It's very, very complicated, right? 18% of Tata it's not like a demat account stock, right? And it's already pledged, by the way, the share. So it is a lot of trouble. That's why they want the company to get listed so that they can actually get some sort of liquidity on their holdings, right? So it's very, very complicated and you don't know what happens. But what is certain is that Tata Group is not going to be the same, right? Which is a big fork in the road for the 150-year-old company, the empire, and a big fork in the road for the country as well. Because Tata has been a nation builder before nation building as a concept existed, right? So they've been very, very good for the country. And if that changes, if that inherent structure changes, there's going to be a lot of things we don't know how they're going to pan out. So that's with Tata. Speaking of listing, speaking of all those things, do you remember what I told you about WeWork? Do you remember what I told you about WeWork listing, guys? If you remember, we discussed it a couple of days ago, maybe a week ago, I don't remember. But I told you something about the stock, didn't I? What did I tell you about WeWork? You remember? Anybody? Anybody? No? You don't remember? The WeWork analysis, the bit that we shared, that it's the company is going public, it is separated from the US entity, it always was, it was a franchise of the US entity. It has some 2000 crores in revenue. It's getting a revenue multiple of 4, above 4, 4.6 something, when it should not be the case. It's overvalued a little. You remember all that? I said the company was overvalued for the public markets, and that's not cool because it's basically a flexible office space provider, which is not such a healthy play. And the company's got listed, folks, and it didn't list at a premium, right? Its share price went down 2.5% right after. So we were right, right? The market rewarded our analysis, essentially became collinear to what happened. By the way, this was not a very, let's say, a contrarian thought or a very unique thought. Everybody who knew anything about markets knew that WeWork was quite overvalued. And it's not the beginning, it's not the first time that the share is falling. You might be in for more fall in times to come, right? Because inherently that business is not that green. Uh, just that's the fundamental nature of the business, right? So you cannot command that kind of a premium on that play. So we were right. Speaking of being right, folks, if you're listening, if you have done it, bring more people in. Share this on WhatsApp or wherever you can. We need to grow. Just remember that we need to grow. Moving on. Thales calls for liberalizing FDI regime in defense. So Thales is a company. It's a defense company, and it's talking about it's nudging the Indian government to essentially liberalize FDI regime in defense. So what it says is it shouldn't matter where the company is owned unless the IP is protected. Unless the IP is protected. So what it says is that it'll benefit the Indian defense sector if foreign ownership is not taken against companies. Do you agree with his analysis? Do you think he's right? Right? He says if the company is owned by someplace else, but if it's very correct about the way it deals with the IP, the way it deals with the technology, the way it deals with data and everything, it should be allowed to function because that's going to attract a lot of defense expertise to the company, to the country. So that's what Patrice Kane says. Countries like France, Australia, and UK, they make a clear distinction between protecting intellectual property and economic rights. They don't care who owns the company as long as the intellectual property is protected by them. So at this moment, India allows 100% foreign investment in the defense sector, while investment of up to 74% in a joint venture with local company requires no prior government approval, right? So at this moment, Saab, Sweden's Saab, is only foreign company that has so far received New Delhi's approval for fully owned local subsidiary in a 500 crore project. So Sweden's Saab used to be an automotive company. It used to be a car company as well. Saab cars were very famous. They were pretty good, very safe cars, very good cars, Saab. But then they came out of the automobile business because automobile business is very hard, right? Now Saab is primarily a defense company and Saab is making in India. So that's what he's saying, right? I do challenge the notion of an Indian company because our India unit is very much an Indian company. It's based out of India, people working are Indian citizens, and so on and so on. So that's what he says. He is right in a way. He says if intellectual property is here, you shouldn't care who owns the company, right? He's not wrong, but things are more complicated when it comes to defense, right? So that is where the government stands on it, and we would be very happy with anything good that happens in the country, right? As far as defense is considered, because we've talked about how defense affects everything when it comes to the country's development in technology and business is considered. So defense, if Mr. Modi calls shipbuilding the mother of heavy engineering, defense would be the father of heavy engineering. Mr. Abhishek Sharma writes, even if IP is here, won't there be risk during wartime? Mr. Varun Bhardwaj says, more skin in the game. I agree. So that's exactly the concern. The government is exactly, that's what it says. And let's see how the situation evolves. So he says there could be a trifecta of a lot of technology if this particular thing is removed, right? Well, no. is the answer for now. Let's see what happens later. Ford is reassessing a Tamil Nadu plant. So Ford was supposed to start making in India. Ford shut its shop in 2022. I was very very sad when Ford went away from India. Ford cars have been the best. So if you've been a Ford customer, you'd know, like Figo, Aspire, EcoSport, Endeavor, all of these cars essentially were segment defining cars. They defined segments and they were great cars. So we had Figo, we have Aspire. It's a beautiful car, and Ford has had great service. Unfortunately, Ford couldn't make money in India and it lost about $2 billion in India. I made the decision of exiting India, which was very very heartbreaking. However, there was a hope that Ford would come back because it was thinking about making engines in India and cars in India for export in its Tamil Nadu plant, right? So even though 2022 it exited, there was still hope that if it starts making cars for export in India, it would basically come back. And then automotive market essentially slid down from 2022. You saw what happened to the automotive market in the country. It wasn't looking that green. So it just couldn't happen, right? But now that Indian automotive sector was looking green again, now that so much of good things have started happening in the automotive play, and the future looks bright because of EV growth, because of GST rationalization, and so on and so forth, everybody believed that Ford will eventually come back, right? And when it starts making stuff in India, it's sooner or later it will start selling stuff in India as well, and that will be beautiful news because once a Ford customer, always a Ford customer. I can say that from personal experience. However, because of the tariff play, it just seems that the company is reevaluating its plans to make things in Tamil Nadu. So the company's official statement is like, we are still here. We are very happy. We are happy for the business unit we have in India. They are working well. They have some employees here, and we are keen to make things in India. However, with the tariff situation turning around from US, it seems that Ford is more interested in investing in Europe, where it has invested 4.4 billion euros instead of looking at India. So Ford might just be exiting India. Now, this is very, very antithetical to the India story, where Mr. Nitin Gadkari says that Indian automotive sector is going to be the number one in 5 years. That's what he says, right? We're going to be the number one in automotive sector of the world in 5 years. A lot of people say Indian automotives have a real room to grow now. And in this fertile ground, if Ford leaves, it'll be a very, very sad thing. But I have a dog in this fight. We have been Ford customers. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful company for us. And my judgment is obviously clouded. But let's see what happens there. It's going to be very sad if it happens, man. Screw American tariffs. Some comments here. Mr. Varun Bhardwaj says, Endeavor, love emoji. I love the car. Beautiful, beautiful. Ford EcoSport, the pioneer of SUVs in India, says Mr. Abhishek Sharma. You're so right. Basically, they were segment defining cars. Right from Figo in hatchback, from sedans, Aspire, from SUV, mid-market SUV in EcoSport, then Endeavor in the semi-premium range. These were all segment defining cars. And you know what? They missed the bus. So they went out in 2022. And after they went out, the entire market of the country shifted to premiumization. Small cars stopped selling, right? Only premium SUVs started selling. 66% of all cars that sell in India are SUVs now. So they just basically missed the bus. They had a bad marketing problem, but at the end of the day, it was also a timing problem. So a lot of people, when I was talking to a government employee, she works at some think tank in India. She said, oh, Ford made a mistake. Ford made this mistake. And I was like, Ford didn't make any mistake. They made the best cars possible. It was that the timing was wrong for their market, right? And things don't pan out sometimes, as we always talk about, right? So that's what happened with Ford. Some comments by Mr. Abhishek Sharma. Ford leadership does not seem to have a long-term clarity. Earlier, they were also planning to sell the Tamil Nadu unit. So Ford leadership is confused about India. And I think they should not be, because they have a real shot at making, like, you cannot have you cannot expect General Motors to have the same story, right? I wouldn't be talking about GM, Chevrolet to be talking in the same lines, because they really faltered. They brought cars from China to India. They had a poor service play. They were a really faltered operation, right, from the get go. But not Ford. Ford had a real game here. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. Anyway, so let's see what happens to Ford. I'll be very happy if they come back. Binance Wallet's decrypted taxman moves in on evaders. So IT has found out 400 well-headed individuals across India who basically invested in crypto through Binance. So crypto investments take 1% TDS and then a lot of tax. So net tax is somewhere around 33 to 38% or as high as 42% under the old tax regime. These people thought that going through Binance will escape all that scrutiny. They were wrong. Now taxmen are coming to bite their butt, which is very funny. So let's see what happens there. Under current play, there is an LRS scheme, right? The what is it? Liberal remittance scheme, or let's say what is liberalized remittance scheme? Yeah, that's LRS, that you can spend some $250,000, but they're now under the scan of crypto dealings. Moving on, there's a lot of things happening. Like Process is picking up 10% stake in Ixico for 1296 crores. 1296 crores, Ixico getting valued at 12,000 crores, 13,000 crores, which is not bad at all. Ixico has proved to be a pretty decent IPO, right? I met the founder, nice person. Let's see what happens with Ixico. So a lot of early investors of Ixico, like Elevation and all, they're selling their stakes, and Process is picking up. Now this is good news, not for Ixico but for the overall market, because you know why? FPIs have been net sellers. FPI have been huge sellers in the Indian equity play. In fact, they've been sellers and only been buyers in the IPO play, because that's where the money is, right? In that market, if Process asserts their belief or signals their vote of confidence, right? Signals their confidence in an Indian equity play or an Indian upcoming story, it's a very good story, right? It's just amazing, right? So we should be very happy that these people are looking at beefing up their stake in Ixico. Speaking of new age companies, Blinkit is looking at some delays as far as stocks are considered, for pre-launch, for listing, for stocking until October 31. Now, why do you think this is happening? We've talked about this. Blinkit is undergoing something. That is the question. Now, and that is leading to its warehouses going full, right? They're turning to be some problems as far as listing new products or getting new things are considered. People are getting held on with their stakes. Sellers are being asked to hold their supplies for the pre-launch and so on and so forth. Why? Why do you think it's happening? We've talked about this. Why do you think it's happening, folks? Anybody? We've talked about some change that happened with Blinkit, right? No answers? Or is it the latency? Is it the latency, or you don't know? You should know. We've talked about this. Okay, the answer is the inventory-led change. Planning to go for IPO? No. Blinkit is already IPO'd. Zomato Eternal is already a public company, Mr. Abhishek Sharma. The answer is that from a marketplace, they're turning into an inventory-led play, right? Because they're turning into an inventory-led play, there's a lot of operational... Oh, separately you mean. Mr. Sharma means, is Blinkit going public separately? No. So they're looking at basically turning to the inventory-led ecosystem. Now, when you're going away from the seller-based marketplace to an inventory-led play, there's a lot of changes which happen, right? And those changes are making operations a bit difficult, right? When you're transitioning, making such a big transition at that scale. Blinkit is the market leader. About 50% of share in quick commerce. So these things are bound to happen. Okay, got it. Like Swiggy model. Swiggy is the marketplace model. Swiggy is the Instamart thing. It's not the inventory-led model. Now Swiggy wants to go into an inventory-led model. However, it's not being able to do that. Why? Because Swiggy has foreign ownership, majorly foreign ownership. And under the current regulations, you need to have over 50% domestic ownership in order to be an inventory-led online seller. So Zomato has more than 50% of domestic ownership. Swiggy does not. So even though Swiggy wants to shift to an inventory-led inventory-led marketplace, they're not being able to because of the regulation. I hope that's clear. Mr. Sumant Kumar and Mr. Abhishek Sharma. Please, I'll reiterate, you've got to bring in people, share it on WhatsApp if you haven't already, right? We need to grow the audience somehow, anyhow, I don't know how. Moving on. Behind the quiet lies, major churn, 50,000 jobs on the line. Silent layouts, tighten grip in 2025. Silent layoffs, tighten grip. So a lot of people are being quietly asked to resign. A lot of people are put on PIP, performance improvement, so on and so forth, and are being laid off. So in estimates peg that about 25,000 people were laid off between 2023 and 2024, right? And that number is going to be doubled. So 25,000 people. So you know that TCS fired 2% of its 6 lakh workflows, right? What's 2% of 6 lakh? 12,000, right? So 12,000 people were fired just from TCS. Overall, the industry is looking at firing about 50,000 people, right? Why? You can guess, but the point is that it's a bit of a trouble situation. So let's see how this pans out, right? In the meanwhile, TCS is hiring 5,000 people in UK. Mr. Sumant Kumar says AI. Well, of course, AI-led efficiencies should be a cause for this. A lot of things are just happening and people are looking at it and they're just turning a blind eye, right? But a lot of things are clearly happening. So yes, AI could be a definite cause. However, a major cause for this is right now the overall dark aspects around IT, right? Because of the tariff situation, because of whatever they're going through, because of the business model shift, majorly AI, as you've talked about, and so on and so forth. So IT is a big hirer, and let's see what happens there. Speaking of IT, analysts are once again saying that brokerages, that IT's troubles have bottomed out and IT index will pick up. So IT index picked up a little last week, right? They say it's gonna pick up, right? Now that's them against me. So it might pick up. I'm not saying it has no chance of picking up. I'm just saying it's very risky. There are systemic risks attached to the IT model right now, which will unravel in ways nobody can imagine, right? And once they unravel, it's not going to be a 5-7% dip. It's just going to be very huge. So IT is facing or is going through some systemic shifts which are going to fundamentally alter the industry. And brokerages, these finance guys, they are not looking at it holistically. So it's my word against them. I'm not saying that the stocks have no chance of picking up. Stocks can pick up for a myriad reasons. But what I'm saying is that there is a systemic risk in the industry which these people are not factoring in. So let's see what happens. My word against these guys. Previously, we had my word against these guys for defense. I turned out to be right. We talked about Aether. I turned out to be right. We talked about Lenskart, right? They also downwardly revised their IPO, I guess. They are now looking at an $8-9 billion valuation instead of 10 billions. They should come down to 6-7 billion, by the way. Then that would be okay. Maybe 5.5, 6. That would be the perfect range. But let's see what happens there. I told you about WeWork. So these people, while they do this for a living, I don't think they have a very holistic perspective on the industry in general. That's why they miss out on a lot of nuances, which is strange because they should be very, very good at it. Mr. Abhishek Sharma says, there was news that TCS will be moving to data center as well, but yesterday the stock fell. This was supposed to be good news. So what exactly happened? So data center, Mr. Sharma, Mr. Abhishek Sharma, when a company invests, when company announces an investment to the tune of $6-7 billion in a greenfield opportunity, which is already crowded with whatever is happening in the play. There are a lot of competition in the data center business, and a lot of technical nuances, and a lot of things that the company hasn't been able to do, hasn't been doing. It doesn't have a history of running data centers, right? So that per se particular investment signals that the company is essentially pivoting. And the reason why company is pivoting is because there's something radically wrong with its core business. That is the signal that I read from that situation. That's the signal that I told you about, right? Now, that is not a healthy signal for the market, because the bread and butter of TCS is the IT outsourcing play, right? The man material model, the time and material model. Now, TCS is the biggest company, so it makes like billions and billions of dollars in revenues. What happens to its core business if it's looking at pivoting like that, right? That signals some weakness, some inherent weakness. Now they are good. They should do this, right? They should essentially pivot even sooner. But when they are looking at that kind of a pivot, right, the street gets spooked. They understand that something radically wrong must be happening, right? That's why it's difficult for big companies to change, right? That's why public companies have so much of pressures. Now, ideally, a long-term investor would be positive of that move, right? That these people might just survive because of the diversification. They're leading to AI. They're leading to all of these things. They're trying to call themselves as an AI first company. That's what TCI said, that we are an AI. We want to be the largest AI first company. That's a good vision, right? But what the street sees is, what a trader sees is, shit, this means their $15 billion business is doomed, right? Whatever money data centers make, whatever money AI makes, will be a fraction of what they're gonna make, what they have been making in this business. Sell the stock. So that's the reading of the situation, and that's the correct reading of the situation, right? So that's not even a wrong reading of the situation, but it is what it is. So I hope that helped. Got it. Thanks, says Mr. Abhishek Sharma. Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. That's what you come to me for. This reminds me of Big Lebowski, right? Has anybody watched Big Lebowski? This is a weekend, so we talk about movies a bit. Beautifully explained, says Mr. Raju Kumar. Well, thank you. So, Big Lebowski is Jeff Bridges, John Goodman, John Turturro, directed by Coen Brothers. Is one of the most wackiest movies of all time. It's the wacky of all wacky movies. Okay, it's so the word "dude" got popularized because of the movie, right? So that's how impactful, culturally relevant that movie is, right? In that, there's a character called Dude. He's a nonchalant guy, long hair, lives with a robe. It's just he's like a bum, essentially. He doesn't care about the world. He's the dude, man. So he's like explaining something to them, and they're like, "So speaking of which, did you get my check made out?" Right? Because that's what you come to me for. Hasn't that ever occurred to you, man? No, Mr. Lebowski, that had not occurred to us. Well, that's what you come to me for. That's what he says. So it's a very good movie, guys. A movie recommendation out of the blue. It's the wackiest of all movies, right? Oh, well, that's what you come to me for. Anyway, so that's that. If you're here, if somebody's new, bring your people, WhatsApp, however you can. We need to grow. This is very important to me now. Moving on. Indian embassy in Kabul to be restored. Taliban plans envoy. Taliban recently had a press conference, and they invited no females. So they were like, only guys allowed. And everybody got offended on social media. And I'm like, what did you expect, man? So there is a video, you should watch it. It's a funny, hilarious video. Maybe you've watched it already, where a BBC or a CNN reporter goes to Afghanistan and she says, when you're gonna go, she's talking to Taliban, and she says, now that Taliban is getting back Afghanistan, it's going to be ruling. Do you see women's rights and women's representation in the public discourse and so on and so forth, right? And there's these people. They have a big hat, right? They have, I don't know. They have a big hat, big beard, right? They have made a very serious face on the video. now as Now, as soon as this lady asks this question, they have this serious face and they break out in laughter. They're like, they're like, they're like, shut down the video, shut down the record. That's how these people behave, man. That's so it was not it it was genuinely funny for them to get this question from a CNN reporter that are you going to be talking about women's rights and women's representation in your government. It was not like they had like a stoic terrorist face, right, the big beard, and they genuinely broke out in laughter because they couldn't believe that somebody could ask them this question. It's like shit, right? And now they didn't get any women in their press conference, and social media ladies were offended. Like, I mean, it's like, are you unaware about the world, man? I mean, do you not know how this world works? Like, these people, you know what? The left, the US aid guys, they were they were sending money to Afghanistan and Pakistan for gender information and education and gender awareness. Like, they're not male female awareness, the whole spectrum awareness. Right? These people are they like totally clueless about the world? That's a very important thing to know. Like, how are you surprised if they didn't call women in the. And some people said that this is India. How could India. Like, this is an embassy. It's their designated land, right? So, I mean, their surprise was more funny to me than the incident. Anyway, so you know what to do, right? When it comes to Afghanistan, if you're a guy, don't go dressed like a lady. That's the insight here. Anyway, moving on. So, a lot of political chit chat which we best not discuss. A pilot's body is demanding the grounding of Air India 787s. So apparently Air India 787s are having recurrent problems, electrical snags and so on and so on. So that is a big red flag, right? So Indian Airlines, the entire fraternity, is looking at Boeing with a lot of suspicion, which is the right thing to do. And not just Boeing, by the way, they're looking at Air India and how they're maintaining these planes and stuff like that. So they're saying that we need to thoroughly check everything as compared when it comes to these B787s, because they might just be having a lot of problems. Now, why didn't this happen before? Some context about Boeing. If you read any business book, right, from the last 20, 30 years, you're going to see that Boeing is said to be a great company. So built to last, good to great, great by choice. Boeing is a case study on how great that company is and so on and so forth. But since some time, like a lot of companies, Boeing has been more towards DEI, more towards, operations and finance guys leading a tech company essentially. An airline is supposed to be a tech operation, right? And these people have their priorities all over the place. And Boeing has been a very bad company. Now, when I say bad company, I don't mean that it's operationally faltering, it's ethically faltering. So some people essentially became whistleblowers in the story of Boeing when they came out and said that the management is willfully sacrificing safety norms for some monetary gains, right? Some sales numbers or whatever. They are sacrificing safety. and those whistleblowers started dropping dead, which was just unimaginable, right? How do you justify that, right? When a news like that comes, something is wrong with the company. However, everybody came to Boeing's defense, and somehow, when I wrote an article about Boeing, a huge article about Boeing after the crash, everybody said that this is wrong. Boeing is so safe, and so on and so forth. It seems like that was not a one-off incident. That was a heavy. There are systemic risks to Boeing right now. That's the core message which I'm espousing at this moment, which is very sad. Which is very sad. Uh, didn't used to happen that people used to be looking at their airplane, right, before booking tickets, but now they do, and they should, because Airbus is far far safer than Boeing. They don't have any of these problems. Thank God for them, right? Andhra Pradesh clinches $10 billion Google investment. We've talked about this. CM Naidu, sir. I love him, right? A $10 billion investment. He says this is a very big investment, and he says something funny, but not funny, very inspiring. He says, uh, he says that uh, this particular investment could make India the world's top economy by 2047. So he has big goals, of course, big dreams. That is very nice. But $10 billion, Google, this has to do with a lot of data centers, AI, and sea cables, and a lot of regulatory things that they really changed. They really made it very comfortable for Google to invest so much of money in Andhra Pradesh. Some numbers if you want, uh, right? So some projects after the Google investment, there are two more ports. There's Ramayapattam and Patnam. They'll complement the existing port of Krishnapatnam. He says that airports Dadagarthi and Chennai, along with Tirupati Airport, will enhance connectivity, while bullet train projects linking Hyderabad, Chennai, Amravati will improve regional transport. Right? BPCL is setting up a refinery, and India will be a top economy by 2047. So he's been on it. He, by the way, is the architect of Hyderabad, right? A lot of good entrepreneurs, even Sridhar Vembu sir says Mr. Naidu sir really changed things for them, right? He really did a very, very good job when it comes to bringing IT and industry in his state of, now it's Telangana, but at the time it was Andhra Pradesh, right? There is no news about the investigation. Don't know what happened, Mr. Sumant Kumar. So airplane crash happened, if you remember. A big plane crash. It killed a lot of people, unfortunately. It happened in Gujarat. Now, that led to a lot of problems with Air India. That screwed the whole airline industry, but it led to a lot of problems with Air India, and there was an investigation around Boeing because it was a Boeing aircraft. Now, when that happened, I started writing about Boeing and how it's not the first time that they've screwed up. There have been many cases, so I wrote a huge article on it, right? And that is basically the case. Hope it explains, Mr. Sumant Kumar. Moving on. British firm Revolut is investing 670 million in India over 5 years. That's great. So Revolut wants to be a truly global finance company, which is great. Moving on. Supreme Court has rejected Viceroy's Vedanta allegation. So if you remember, I used an F word. I've used F words twice at this show, right? One of them was an accidental slip of tongue for Viceroy, guys. Right? So these people shorted Vedanta and they wrote a report. But that report was, for the lack of better word, boring. It was a damn squib. There were no revelations in that report. Like, I knew everything that they were talking in that report, and I just read the papers, man. So these people didn't come out with any revelation. They just said that it's bad for Vedanta to have this much of debt, and it'll be difficult for them to service it, and so on and so forth. The usual shebang, right? So naturally, nothing happened after their shot. So they were like, nothing happened after the shot. This is not right. There should be an investigation, right? So they basically filed a PIL or whatnot about investigating Vedanta's business ways. And SC said, like Supreme Court said, what are you doing, guys? No, no, you're not going to do this. And we're putting it down with us as a strong message to the entire community that you can't be meddling in our business, right? Under what law? That's what's happening. That's exactly what was going to happen. They placed a bad shot, man. These stupid people. Hindenburg at least did a lot of research. They came out with some revelations, right? They came out with some startling revelations. These guys, they were just lazy. Anyway, a lot of news around cough syrup deaths. PIL for independent probe dismissed. So people were saying that there should be an SIT of sorts, like an independent probe around this cough syrup incident. They said no, states will do this. States will obviously react to the situation. Now, I wrote a very long article yesterday, like a 1700 word article. Right? This was huge. When you're writing such a big article, you get to know the real craft of writing, whether you're actually a writer or whether you're a joke, right? Small pieces, they are easy, they can work, but a big piece like 1700 words, where you have to have a narrative understanding, that's a piece of work, right? Unfortunately, nothing happened with that article. I don't know why LinkedIn why was it shadow banned. It just got 3000 views. Like, I have 3000 people on WhatsApp, man. So how did that article not go anywhere? It's beyond me. But the point is that I wrote that article. I wrote about the systemic corruption and Mr. Nitin Kamat's views on that. And, even though that article didn't really go anywhere, I got a donation from somebody. $500. Below my article, there's a line, right? It's an article you read for free. And if you believe nothing is free, it should be, you can donate. So a person donated. That's so sweet. Moving on. People who are watching, I remind you, if not done already, please bring more people. Share this link on WhatsApp or whatever. Right? Comment. Like, you can't comment right now because it's a live session, but do whatever you can. Moving on. Maruti is looking at wooing bikers. So Maruti's cars are like 10, 15%, 20% cheaper, 13% reduction in prices. And the small cars. So Maruti has an incentive to sell small cars because it's a small car player. Now, its market share has come down. It's the least ever. It was 39% in 2013. FY30, it was 40.9%. And market share has dropped to 40.9%. It was in FY13. Same. So 10 years. It's been 10 years that Maruti's market share was so low. Why? Because people are not buying small cars anymore. 66% of all sales of cars in India are happening in the SUV segment, as I told you. So it's bad news for Maruti. What it wants to do is it wants to lure the bikers and the scooters with favorable EMI plans. And they say that, now we are seeing helmets on the tables where cars are sold. Now, this is a signal. They say that we'll be able to convert a lot of these bikers to car users. However, the contrary view is that it's easier said than done, because bikes and cars are becoming like an aspirational purchase, especially cars, not bikes, but definitely cars. And premium bikes are obviously an aspirational purchase, and those people will not go to Maruti. But the tier 2 bike, or let's say bottom of the pyramid cheap bikes, when they buy cars, it's supposed to be an aspirational purchase. So they look at second-hand Balenos and so on and so forth. But they say, this particular site says that no, it's possible that these bikers, these small families, the neo-middle class, as they say, they might just switch to cars, which will be beautiful. That's called social mobility, right? 3 people on the bike, 3 people on the car. That's how the country grows. That's called neo-middle class. Moving on. BMW's India electric cars sales surge as buyers at the upper end go green. 30% sales to come in from BEVs in next 2 years, says India president. So that's what's happening. Some electric cars, even though BMW sells not many cars in India, very few cars. What's the number? BMW India sold 2,500 electric cars between January and September this year. So this year they're going to sell about like 3,000 cars if they're lucky. So this is a nothing burger. local luxury car segment, they have 60% share. India sells about 5,000 luxury cars a year, right? 3,000 to 5,000. Anyway, so that's what's going on. Very interestingly, OTTs have been told to enhance accessibility features. Let's say if you're watching a movie and there's a hearing impaired person, so they need a sign language, right? And subtitles and so on. So if it's a blind person, they need some, more accessibility features, some narration and so on and so forth. Now they're putting it, the guideline is putting it all on OTTs, and OTTs are crying because these are going to be compliance costs, right? And they're saying, hey, we should not be the only people who bear this cost. There should be OTTs, the platforms and so on and so forth. There are other guys. So let's see what happens there, right? It's a pretty interesting play. Moving on. If you want to know what a boring corporate speak is, right? So when you hear, let's say, Elon Musk, sir, or Peter Thiel, or these kind of guys, right? They speak in a way which is human, which is insightful, right? Now here is the Carlsberg, the beer brand CEO. Now he's supposed to be a cool guy. He's a beer brand or an alcohol guy, right? Global CEO. Look at how he talks. Okay, it's about whether Carlsberg Indian unit will also go IPO. This is the question. We have seen the rumors and we are going to keep at it. What we can say is that we are always focused on creating value for our shareholders. And of course, that means that we assess all opportunities there are in terms of value creation. That also means that India is, of course, one of the options that we would look at. Like we would look at other large markets for opportunities. Like this guy needs to get replaced by AI, right? This is AI, right? If you would ask ChatGPT to respond to the prospect of your company's India division going the IPO way, this is how the AI will talk. I'll give you more of this gem, right? So somebody asked, what do you look at the country? We are continuing a positive trajectory in India by capturing market share and driving growth in both mainstream and premium segments. This is the Nilesh Patel, Managing Director, Carlsberg India. Now, this is why these people don't get any respect, right? Look at this response. We are continuing our positive trajectory in India by capturing market share and driving growth. This is ChatGPT, but not the current version, not ChatGPT 5, probably 2.5 or the first model that came, right? The first model, that's how it talked like. Anyway, so some people do not have the flair for talking like humans. Moving on. Cabinet may discuss finance and market aid next week to boost exports. We've talked enough about that, and I guess we're all old viewers today, so we're not going to talk about it more. There obviously is a lot of schemes and exports for exports. Exporters pin hopes on EU FTA. Exporters are obviously hoping that the US tariff play will get balanced by EU FTA, free trade agreement, because US is screwing in India. Now look at what happened yesterday. You know what happened yesterday with Trump and China? So China screwed Trump by blocking rare earth minerals, the magnets and rare earth minerals and so on and so forth, right? Now Trump said that Trump believed that whatever conversations he's having with China, they're going to lead to unlocking of those minerals, because that was what was on cards. China gave him a shit show. China blocked it. Now Trump flipped out. He said, he wrote a long piece about how he's not going to meet Xi. President Xi, he's not going to meet Xi. He says, I was supposed to meet him, but now there's no point, right, at this conference. And we were talking well, we were meeting well with China, but now it seems all pointless because these people are blocking things, and we have 2 things to block for every single thing they block for us, right? And now I'm going to lay more tariffs on China. And now China is going to realize that they're not the only people to have leverage. Now I'm paraphrasing. So these are not the exact words, but very, very close. Very close. So it was a big Truth Social post where he says it's going to be essentially trade war with China. Now the question is, why did China choose to screw US like that? Doesn't it want any concessions from US as far as the trade situation is considered? What does China do? What is China thinking when it's basically taking US head on when it comes to their minerals and so on and so forth, right? Secondly, if Trump essentially gets in a fighting mode with China, what happens to India? Is a very big question, right? Because he cannot fight with India and China at once, right? So he was warming up with China, he was screwing India, he's already fighting with Russia. So what happens if China and US basically rage on a trade war like situation yet again? What happens to India? Well, it means very, very good news for India. It means that India should benefit. Mr. Abhishek Sharma is right, right? So India will essentially gain. And that's perhaps why Mr. Narendra Modi tweeted yesterday, talk to my friend President Trump. He was back on the friend line, right? Otherwise, he wasn't saying that he was my friend. He said President Trump, right? But he said my friend President Trump, congratulated him on a successful peace deal with Gaza. Speaking of which, Mr. Putin also said that Nobel Committee has lost all its credibility by not giving the Nobel Peace Prize to Trump because he's genuinely wanting to solve wars. So he's basically sorted the Israel-Gaza conflict. He's forced Israel to bend, right, which is a big thing. And he's looking at the Ukraine-Russia situation as well. So if US and China get hot, and it looks like they're going to get hot, it's going to be very, very good news for India. Fingers crossed, guys. Moving on. Niti Aayog is batting for reforms in Income Tax Act with focus on decriminalization. Now, why are they looking at decriminalization? We've talked a lot about this, so this shouldn't be a surprise. Why are they looking at decriminalization of income tax laws? Why? Because it leads to ease of doing business. It's basically ease of, it's deregulation in a way. It's less litigation, right? It's favorite. So when you cut down laws, right, there is an archaic law somewhere which says something, and that's a problem, right? So when you cut it out, what happens? There is no court cases on that matter. There are no court cases, right? They just go out of the window. Now, that is a very, very good strategy. So if you remember, the government was touting at decriminalizing about 700, 800 or 900 laws. And they said we are going to go to 1300 decriminalization of offenses, right? Minor offenses. And that's a very, very good thing because all of those things were fertile grounds for lawyers making money, right? Not anymore. So if you need some numbers, as per the report, Income Tax Act continues to criminalize 35 actions and omissions across 13 provisions. All these offences are punishable with imprisonment and fine, and for 25 of them, law prescribes mandatory minimum imprisonment term. Of the 35 criminal offence, 12 should be fully decriminalized and addressed through civil or monetary penalties alone. So this is one of the things that we've talked about a lot in detail. How to solve for corruption, right? How to solve for corruption. You reduce people, you reduce complications, you reduce money, you reduce time. You can't reduce money and time because that's what makes the world go round. But you can reduce complications, right? That's one way of doing it. So that's the play. Moving on. Value of gold held by households in India hits $3.8 trillion. So Indian households hold $3.8 trillion of gold, right? According to the current value. India's GDP is 4.2 trillion. So Indian households hold as much gold as the entire country's GDP. US, according to the latest, gold valuation play, holds 1 trillion worth of gold. The Reserve Bank of US, the Fed Reserve, essentially. And Indian households hold more gold than all the top 10 reserve banks of the world combined. So they're very smart. Gold and silver. It's very weird whatever is happening in US and China with US and China. This means that there could be anything as far as the financial play is considered. Uh, I don't know why China believes it has so much of leverage, but maybe China knows something that we don't. Maybe China knows a way to screw US once and for all, right? If that happens, the financial world will be up in tumbles. And if that happens, people who are holding gold will be very happy. And who are not holding gold will be very sad. Moving on. Green energy parts import registration made mandatory. Of course. Power Ministry seeks cost reflective tariffs, removal of cross subsidy, Electricity Act overhaul proposed. So, of course, the Power Ministry said cross subsidies inflate industrial tariffs, hurting manufacturing competitiveness and MSME growth. So, that's what's happening. Moving on. Railway revamps maintenance plans, add more loco. Okay. Moving on. Caution and overhang on equity funds inflows dip 9%. So equities are seeing less inflows in September's 9%, right? So if you look at some numbers, equity mutual fund inflows, now these are domestic, these are not FPI I'm talking about. Domestic mutual funds fell 9%, right? There's a lot of uncertainty. Equity schemes received 30,000 crores instead of 30,000 crores in the previous month, right? While that is going on, what's the gold looking like? Gold ETFs saw the record inflows of 8,300 crores compared to 2,000 crores last month. So just look at the market from a macro view. What are the mutual fund guys doing? What are the people doing, right? They were very bullish on equities. So they kept putting money in equities. Equities just kept taking in a lot of money. FPI sold no problems. People just went heavy on equities. But now they're slowing down. They're putting it on gold. What does this say? If you're a believer on wisdoms of crowds, right, what would you note when it comes to this? Would you like to share some thoughts? You understand what I'm talking about, right? This is a signal, guys. This is a signal. Gold ETF saw this. Is gold an asset people should consider going in at the current high valuation, says Mr. Piyush Sethi. We've talked a lot about this, Mr. Sethi. Yes, I've talked a lot about this. I've quoted Nassim Taleb sir's whole body of work, the whole skin in the game, anti-fragile, black swan, fooled by randomness, play, the aspect of barbell strategy. When a black swan happens, you don't know when it happens. It might just happen anytime, any place. So I remember when the market crashed on April 13th or April 30th, April 23, 2022 or something of that sort. The ETs before that day were all solid, right? They were all cool. They were all happy, right? But suddenly the market crashed like crazy that day. And there was no indication, at least to an outsider. Now, I didn't used to read it so deeply back then as I do because of Thinker's frequency. So I didn't see anything coming, right? And the market just crashed. So when the market crashes, what happens? So gold is the ultimate hedge. Standout trend is growing appetite for precious metals. So that's what's going on, folks. RBI is consolidating circulars. SEBI penalty norm to remove stigma. Mr. Piyush Sethi says, I believe it won't crash considerably and prices will just settle as it's the central banks that are buying. So it's safe, there won't be a major dip. Are you talking about gold? Gold is not going to be a dip. I'm not talking about gold crash. I'm talking about the fiat financial economy crash. Like something happens with US, some debt default or whatever. And the second order effects of it taking everything down with it, right? Something like a 2007 October scene, right? Or a 1987 or a 1929 or a 1999, 2000. Something like that, right? That's what I'm talking about. In that case, gold is your ultimate hedge. Moving on. Magic triangle. That was the defense play that we were talking about. We've talked about checks. It looks like Google could be forced to change its search operations in UK after it became the first company subject to new powers from Britain's competition regulation, dominance in search. So that's what's happening. Google getting a lot of brickbats, right? From EU, from UK, from everywhere, and they're talking about investing about £5 billion in UK. Is it a bribe? Looks like it. But anyway, moving on. That's about it, folks. We've covered everything, right? This brings us to the end of the 138th episode of Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. It's 9:14. We're gonna punch in anytime soon. I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally. And I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. I hope you had fun. I hope it added a lot of value to you. Definitely added a lot of value to me. However, I want you all, I'm sincerely requesting you all to make this grow, share it with people, bring people on board. I don't know how that happens. I'm not a YouTuber, I don't want to be, but this cannot go on, right? We have not been growing at all for since ever. I mean, we had the same number of people in the beginning, in the first episode. So this needs to grow. You need to do something. You need to drop comments. I don't know what you ought to do, but you need to do. So please do it. Thank you so much. I need to thank Mr. Raju Kumar, Mr. Varun Bhardwaj, Mr. Abhishek Sharma, Mr. Sumant Kumar, Mr. Piyush Sethi, and everybody else who joined, right? So thank you and have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.